Wow. Okay, that was the quiet intro today.
That was
Just
no intro music at all. I just
I guess we didn't pay for the extra service today. Welcome. Welcome
spend
everybody.
it all on GPT-5 tokens.
Yes. Okay. So this is GPT-5 for Microsoft developers. I got some of my friends together today to show this off. And the goal here is like, okay, so GPT-5 came out, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. I think 2 weeks ago. And it is cool. And we've been playing with it. We have Microsoft, like day one, made it available on all the different kind of platforms, the developer platforms, also the consumer platforms. We collaborated on this blog post. If you're watching live, which you are, as I'm talking to you now, all these links are available on this post. So don't freak out. We'll be flashing them by, but you should be able to get to just about all the links of the things we're going to be showing you on the post. We collaborated on this, and then we're like, hey, we should show this off on a live stream. Hi, everybody around the world. By the way, this is amazing. We've got folks in Pakistan, we got France, we got Brazil, we got Guatemala, we got England, we got Mexico. I mean, this is quite the party today. So this is really cool. So what I thought we'd do is I started with some general kind of like, what is GPT-5 for developers? And then we'll go through, Burke's going to show VS Code and some JavaScript stuff. We got Pamela showing some Python stuff. We got Bruno showing .NET, and we'll take your Q&A. So, okay, so first of all, like what's in GPT-5? Some things I picked up from the like live stream that they did is it's kind of a combo architecture in that it's both good at deep reasoning and it's also fast at simple things. So it kind of has this split architecture where it can do if a problem requires some chain of thought reasoning, some kind of deeper research sorts of things, then it's going to go and do that. If it's something where it can just very quickly answer, it's going to do that as well. So those are some of the big things I picked up. Any other thoughts, folks, on this? All right, I'm nailing it. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, from what I read about it as well, what I took away is that it sort of collapses the we had this whole suite of models before where you had like 4.0 and 4.1 and 0.3 and 0.1 and 0.4, and they were all good at different things. And if you looked in the picker, it would try to tell you, right? Like this one's good for quick tasks. This one's good for, thinking or, deep reasoning or whatever. And now it looks to me like, and according to their blog post, that they've taken the feature sets from those different models and created the GPT-5 model family, which sort of encompasses the feature sets from all of those previous models. And I don't know about everybody else, but now when I go to the site, I just see it's just ChatGPT. There's all the models are gone. There is only GPT-5.
So my understanding there was that they really went all in on that and kind of backed up a little bit since then because it was throwing some people off. But yeah, the idea of like, hey, you don't need to be an expert in picking a model, like we'll do that for you, right? And then but then at first they deprecated a bunch of stuff and people are like, no, I actually wanted GPT-4 still or whatever. And so they're available, but you shouldn't have to be an expert on them, which is kind of cool.
And I'm curious how Chad feels about that, like this not having access to specific models. Chad, like the New York Times has a podcast called, I think it's called Hard Fork, where they talk about this and people's reaction to models being moved. Like people were attached to models like 4. So I'm just curious, chat, are you attached to a model? How do you feel about not having the picker?
It's interesting.
Well, it was concerning because a lot of the attachment was like emotional attachment.
Yes.
Because people were using it for emotional support, which, I definitely understand. It's, nice to just have somebody to bounce ideas off of. But I think it's probably better that the new GPT-5 model is generally a bit more serious. It's kind of no nonsense. especially when you use it via the API. I think what ChatGPT did is after the backlash, they went and changed the system prompt that they themselves are using with GPT-5 to make it a bit warmer, a bit more, like feeling like a connection, but not the actual like model itself. So I think the nice thing is from the API, I think we have a model that's a bit like is more kind of neutral at the API level, and then we can gear it a bit more with our system prompt. So I think it was a good thing to do. Like I think models should generally be fairly neutral in terms of their sycophancy, to use the word that we all heard this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening on Vergecast and they were talking through some of it, and there's a balance of some people are like, they just want to ask you a question and get an answer and they don't want to like think about it. But then for people that are more deeply involved for a variety of reasons, it can be for personifying it, or it can be because, hey, you're a system expert and you've been using a model for a while and you know exactly what to feed it and how to get a result out. You want that level of control. So it's it's an interesting balance there.
So we could probably spend the whole time
on
this. I find this super interesting because I'm also very attached to a specific model, and for me that's GPT 4.1. And do I have an emotional attachment? Yes. But my relationship with that model is different. I code with that model, so it's been writing code with me for months. And if someone was to take that model from me, that would be hard on me. Right now, it's not going to. It's not going to be that hard, but I'm going to miss it. And so I do feel like people become attached to these models and they maybe attribute certain characteristics to them that they may or may not have. And I'm just curious if chat feels the same way about this. And because one of the critiques that we get on GitHub Copilot is they're like, why doesn't it has no personality? Like I hear this a lot. GitHub Copilot has no personality. It's very bland, right? It's very, or they'll say it's very corporate. I've heard some people call it corporate beige. And the response to that, I know it's a great phrase. The response to that is yes, but that's by design, because you can tailor the model however you like, right? You can add instruction files. If you want it to talk to you in Gen Z slang, just tell it to do that. It will do that. But it's not our place to give it a personality. I don't know. This is one of those, Pamela, this is one of those gray areas where like, I don't know I don't know that anybody knows. Yeah.
Hey, you may think, Burke, to add a little options on the GitHub Copilot icon, a smiley one, which is the funny Copilot, then you have the corporate one. Then hey, that's maybe not a good idea, and I don't quote me on that, please. But
feature request,
instructions are there to work, and I like those.
Yeah. Well, so in addition to those kind of things, there's some key improvements. So there's the enhanced reasoning. They talk about the reduced hallucinations. I'm curious from like an engineering perspective, how they actually go into doing some of that. And then improved instruction following. And then they talk too about like safety and accuracy. So a lot of these I'm guessing is like training on some specific, like, some like, when I ask this, it had better give this answer or not this. Pamela, you added these graphics in here. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so these charts are from the system card. I'll stick it in the chat. The system card is, they put it out for every model, and it shows all the evaluations that they run in the model. The system card actually doesn't go into the training, right? So it doesn't actually say like, oh, why is it better on these fronts? It just shows all the different evaluations that they've run. But I think a lot of these improvements did come from the, like the final training stages. Like when you train a model, like first you train it just to understand like spoken language, right? Like, and it becomes fluent in, sounding like a human. And then you train it in like, okay, I want you to be able to do tool calling. I want you to be able to do conversational chat. And then you train it with like alignment to human desires, right? Like, okay, we want you to be outputting safe output. We want you to be accurate. An interesting thing is like some of those desires are in conflict with each other, right? So in the past, when we've trained models to be like warmer and nicer and like aligned to what human wants, they also tend like to be more helpful. They also tend to hallucinate more, right? So you'll see like the human alignment scores go up, the hallucination rate will go up at the same time. And that's super interesting, right? So what's more important is that we like what we hear, or that what we hear is actually correct. So this time, I think when they trained it, they put more emphasis on correctness versus always like being something that human liked, right? So I think a lot of the improvements came from those final training stages, and with what they decided to optimize for.
So some people are asking on like what sort of things what do you mean by safer and some of that stuff? And some of these things are like there's health bench, there are actual like benchmarks that we train against, right? So this is like when I ask this question, like scoring question and answer. So it's cool to see that sort of stuff there.
Yeah, if you look into the system card, there's like many pages about biological risk. That's actually one of the big things that models will check for. So yeah, they do like red teaming attacks, prompt injection attacks, biological risk, all sorts of different safety metrics. It can be a little like triggering to read some of the like things that they evaluate on. But it's also just really heartening to see that, right? Like I only trust a model if I get to read its system card.
Yeah. Just high level too. I had some discussions recently. I was at VS Live Redmond, and I was talking to folks that are looking at AI for enterprise use. And a thing that I was pointing people to, and there's a lot of different systems for doing this, but across the board, like there's Microsoft extensions for AI evals. And this is a library where you can basically run tests on your AI output, the same way you'd write unit tests or integration tests. And so this is a thing where you can say like, hey, when I ask this question, it should give this answer. It can be hooked in with Azure DevOps. There's like a whole dashboard. So you can verify you're getting not getting regressions and stuff. And that's an example of a place where you can, as you're evaluating, like maybe you're moving from GPT-4 1 to 5, and you want to make sure that your system accuracy is good using systems like that. So I'm aware of like the evals library. I'm sure there's stuff for JavaScript and Python, etc.
For Python, there's an Azure AI Evaluations SDK, which is very good, and it has a red teaming agent in it, so you can actually red team your app yourself. I've got a blog post about that and a talk, and that's pretty interesting. Like it throws all kinds of horrible questions at your app to try and get it to say bad things. Now the thing is, when you're using the Azure AI models, especially the OpenAI models, they don't succumb. I've never had a successful attack against an Azure OpenAI model, because first, the model itself has been trained like at this level. And then second, we've got the Azure AI content safety filter on top, and that catches a lot of the things as well. So I've never had a successful red teaming attack against the models hosted on Azure OpenAI.
That's a really good thing you bring up there too, is the whole like the Azure level of safety and governance stuff, because sometimes people will be like, hey, it's an OpenAI model, why throw Azure into the mix? And those sorts of things, where being able to like add that level of control and like content safety, a great example there.
So I do have a question about that though, Pamela, because doesn't OpenAI does have content safety on their model, right? Like if you go ask it some things, it will just refuse to answer. I guess this is an added level of protection or more strict.
If you're using the models from OpenAI.com, then it has what's built into the model, right? Like what came out of its final training stage. So yeah, if I ask just from an OpenAI model, like, oh, how do I make a bomb? It'll say, sorry, I can't help you with that, right? But then if I ask that same question to an Azure OpenAI model, I will actually get a JSON error response that says, hey, your prompt got blocked by the content safety filter, right?
So it never actually made it to the model.
Yeah, it never made it to the model.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, is that like on Azure OpenAI, lots of these things get blocked by that layer. That's what we call like the safety or guardrails layer. And then, but even if it gets through that layer, the OpenAI models have been through such rigorous, supervised training phase at the end that they won't answer bad questions, unsafe questions.
Cool. Okay, we got a question. Someone's already like get to the code already, so we'll definitely do that. We're just setting the stage here. I'll blaze through some of these slides here. But so developer features. There's some extended token support. From my understanding, is GPT-4 had like 128K. This is 400K. There's more control parameters, which you folks will be showing off, I think, in some of these demos, being able to specify reasoning, effort, and verbosity, which is really cool. So you can say, I want to use GPT-5, but I only want you to put, like, I want, light reasoning effort or whatever, and I want, max verbosity. Like, you can structure that. They're structured JSON outputs. Another thing is also input. So you can specify like a input grammar. You can specify not just JSON, but you can also specify like using like a regular expression. You can specify an input grammar, which is pretty cool. There's a question earlier in the chat about like, why would you use JSON? I think that was kind of a joke, but like being able to specify not just free text, but be able to specify like at a level that can be verified in your code with like, JSON validation or like regular expression validation is really, really pretty cool there. So, all right, we got some different, so we have the, mini and nano variants, which is so for the most part you can just use the GPT-5, but there's one thing here is that there are some places where like for instance in Azure there are certain regions that have the full GPT-5 model available, but everybody's got access to like the mini and nano. I believe there's still a form you've got to fill out in order to get access. Okay. Pamela nodding along, so cool. All right, let's, you know what, honestly, I think there's some, I'll just high level, you can use GPT-5 in the different like consumer products. So you can go through, you can look for where it says use GPT-5. This is a place where you can, explicitly do it. In the products, this is kind of what we're showing off today as Microsoft, like day one, added this stuff in. So Copilot integration, AI Toolkit, AI Foundry, and GitHub Models. One thing real quick, I was, and my browser is frozen. Maybe Bruno, I'll show that off later or something, because we're talking about GitHub Models and Bruno was showing me some stuff there. I think at this point, let's just kick over to Burke and we can dig into it with the with Copilot and JavaScript and stuff.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Burke, let's add you to the stage. Oops.
I think you and Peggy are fighting for it.
There we go. Okay. Let's
go. Just really quickly, the first thing I did when this came out, we got access was to the docs, and GPT-5 said it was better at design and building aesthetically pleasing games. Like that's literally what it told me it was good at. I said, all right, let's find out. So I created this prompt here to create games and I'm using just mini. And so you can go, I'll put this in the chat. You can write this prompt, see what it build. It just tells it build what one.
I'm getting some lag from you, Burke, there.
Lag or yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's John though. John's the one lagging. Is it? The joys of streaming. John, everybody else looks very smooth for me. You're like,
People are saying that you are downloading large models, Burke. They are stop downloading big models locally.
So this is one of the games that, oh my gosh, it's kind of jarring. This is one of the games that made off something in a garden, just chase you around. If they hit you, then you die. So every single game it generates is like some version of orbs, which is why the video I made said GPT-5 is great if you like orbs. So like, here's another one. This is just more orbs, like more relaxing though, I guess.
Wow.
These things, I think
Burke, it also generates the music.
It tries. No, it tries to get from the internet. And sometimes it
Oh,
succeeds and sometimes it doesn't. So the first one, it was actually succeeded. This one I had to add from Envato because it kept giving me links.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, y'all can go play with this. But the one thing I've heard loud and clear from people is they're like, please stop one-shotting things that like isn't helpful for developers. It's like, it's fun, but it isn't helpful. So let's look at something else. This is a project. I don't know, John, do we have the URL for this from Dan Wallin? And it's quite simple, but very effective at showing you some of the new features in GPT-5. So specifically what it's going to show you is how to enforce a schema response from the model, and then how to enforce a level of reasoning. So in the code here, you'll see we have let's collapse this. We have this interface math explanation schema, and this will make sense when I show you what the output is from the model. And there's steps as an array and an answer as a number. And then down here, you can see when it actually gets passed, it's saying, give it to me in this response format, which is type JSON schema. But then we pass in this custom schema, which is, I don't quite understand this. I didn't write this code. If Dan was here, he'd tell you, because it isn't actually, when you see it, it's not JSON. Like it kind of is, but it's not. It's the custom schema that he made. And then the reasoning effort, right? And you could toggle these. So let's actually run this so we can see what it gives us back. And you can see it right there. Let's just run it again. It's not going to ask us for anything. It's going to pass in what is 23 times 7, show your steps. And then remember the schema, steps, answer. So he's enforcing this schema. So no matter what you say, it's going to give you back the answer in this schema. So you can see it's got its steps here in the answer. And you can see it also took a minute. Like, this is the longest time it will ever take a computer to answer the question of what is 23 times 7, right? Like I can do it faster than that. And the reason why is because it's enforcing this high reasoning effort. And so break 23 into 20 plus 3, multiply each part.
This is that new math.
I mean, I guess so. Like this is the most inefficient way I feel like to arrive at this answer, but it's interesting because it has to arrive somehow. Like how does your brain arrive at the answer? I don't actually know, right? Like you know your times tables, and so you can sort of like back into this, but your brain is doing something similar to this, I imagine. You just don't know that it's doing it. So let's now look at GPT-5 in Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to start off, and I'm going to use what I call GPT-5 heavy. And let's go ahead and run this in, and I'm going to put this in agent mode here. And I've got a special prompt. So you can, in Visual Studio Code, you can have these prompts. You can see I've got a bunch of them here. And one of them is called plan. And it just has it come up with a plan. So I wanted to refactor this into an interactive CLI that allows the user to chat with the model and always enforces the existing schema, because that's the whole point of this demo, right? And then we'll just send this. Now, the reason why I'm using heavy and not many is because there's a lot of like thinking and reasoning, investigating. Like this is a heady task. It's not a very specific task. And I find that models like GPT-4 1 and 5 mini perform better when they have a specific list of things that you want them to do. And so you want to give them that specific list. They will try to implement high-level prompts of just, what was the prompt here? This refactor, make a plan to refactor this into a CLI, but it's very generic. And so they're just not as good at that. So you can see here, the first thing it's going to do is create this PRD, which is a product requirements document. We can take a look at that here. And
everybody's talking about PRDs nowadays.
I know it's very popular. Who would have thought we would have gone from, oops, let's get out of here. And then let's collapse that. So here's the PRD it creates. It basically says this is what the objective is to refactor this. It's exactly what we asked for. But then what's interesting is down here, I'm going to go down here, the functional requirements, right? So as a user, this is what I want to do. And then this is what needs to actually happen, right, in the software. And I'm providing it with this template. That's why it's creating it like this. But this actually isn't enough. This is still like a little too high level for implementation, believe it or not. Right? As a user, I want to influence reasoning depth, adds AI reasoning environment variable default high. So the next thing that the plan is going to do is create a technical specification. It's already done that. And if we look at that, you can see that this is much more technical. It's mentioning specific files, entry points, what libraries are being used, etc. It's very, very specific. And the reason why it knows this is because it's looked at the code. It knows what code is already here. And then it's looked at the PRD and it's taken that and it's distilled that down into a set of technical requirements that are actually required to pull this off. Now, because we're doing a demo, we're not going to read through this very carefully. We're just gonna send it. But what I want to do here real quick, I'm going to change my model and I'm actually going to pull this off the screen for just a second because there's a lot of models in my picker that are going to be, you're going to be like, what is that?
Well, while you're doing that, I think, like initially I was like, oh my gosh, why are we bringing all these documents in? But it's really helpful, I think, to like do this step with a plan. And I learned some of this stuff from you, Burke, like at Build, but like basically before you just jump into writing code, say like, hey, let's come up with a plan. Let's come up with a checklist, like that sort of thing. Right. And then you can agree on what you want it to build.
Correct. And now I don't always do that, right? Like if you're saying move this button to the top of the file or the top of the page and left a line, you don't need a PRD and a technical specification to do that. You can just send, that's very specific, right? It really, there's like a range of when you need one. And the more you work with these models, the more you'll know, like if I send this, GPT-5 is absolutely going to mess this up. It does not have enough context to do this. And so it's really just a matter of like, it's almost like you have to get a feel for the model and understand. And the more you work with it, the more you get an understanding of when you need to run through something more structured like this. So it looks like it's running a test. It's made some changes. It's added a CLI file here, which is interesting. Oh, and looks like it's waiting for my intervention. So it's actually, what did it do? It created this new CLI file. So and it modified the package JSON. So I'm going to assume that it added a start CLI. Okay, let's try that. Interactive schema enforced chat CLI, which is what we asked for. And then it's giving us the model and the reasoning, which is nice. So I don't even know, like, what is 2 + 2? I have no idea what this will do. Okay, and there it is. There's the schema, and then there's the answer, right? And I wonder, like, I don't know what. Again, I have no idea what this will. Actually, I don't know what it's gonna return. This is a great thing about doing demos with AI is you have no idea what's about to. Literally anything can happen right now.
I mean, you could look at the code, Burke. You're allowed.
Oh yeah, at the code that it generated. That's probably a good idea. I should have done that before I actually ran it.
Maybe it's got a hard-coded pancake recipe.
Oh, there it is. Look at this.
The steps.
Wow.
You have a lot of steps here. I like it. For a simple math, 3 steps.
And then the answer is 8. It had to come up with an answer because it's like calibrated for math, but not for. That's really interesting. Okay, so looking at the code here, it's created a CLI. And I know because for time here, John, how many more minutes do I have?
1,000.
1,000. So the main function.
GPT. No. 5-ish.
Here's the commands. So it's created this whole CLI here. I mean, honestly, some of this looks a little spaghetti to me. I think this probably could stand a refactor, to be honest with you.
I've been using that as part of my like vibe coding or GPT coding in general lately, right? It's like have some specific refactor steps, just like you would do in a normal software project, right? So
100%. Yes.
Abstract all the data access into a data service layer or whatever, right?
Right. Get it working and then run refactor. And I actually have a refactor prompt here, right? So if we were going to do this, this is what I would send back, and I would send it on heavy. Now, I call it heavy because it's just GPT-5. It's not pro. And so if you say GPT-5, people like don't know which one you're talking about. So I just call it GPT-5 heavy because nobody's given it a name. So let's go back to, and let me move this off again real quick. Let me go back here. Let's go back, and it said it was like good at design. Let's do update this CLI to be gorgeous and modern. Even though it's an interface, it should feel delightful to the user. Now, again, this is pretty vague, so we're going to use heavy to do this. And then just like as a pro tip for y'all out there, chat, if you want the model to do design, using words like modern, gorgeous, beautiful, right? Very descriptive,
orbs.
Visual. Yeah. What was that?
Purple orbs.
Oh yeah. Just wait. The purple problem persists. There's no doubt about it. That's how you get these like modern looking UIs. If you really want to have a lot of fun, you can use the word radical in your prompt. So you can pass radical, make the UI radical. And it really interprets that as kind of like unhinged and will create some wild interfaces. And then you could just be like, now make it more radical, increase the radicality by 2x. And I mean, I've made websites where like words are like swinging across the page and stuff. It's just great. All right. So enhance the terminal UX. This is the last thing I'll do, John, and then we'll move on to other folks. Okay. It's going to try to, so it's installing some packages. You'll notice that I'm kind of just letting it do its own thing. So in Visual Studio Code, we have an auto approve in settings. So if you go to settings, we have an auto approve.
That's a big tip. Everyone pay attention here. That's a good one to know.
So you can have it auto approve tools, which I have it on. And then here's a list of all the things that it cannot do, right? So it can't do certain things. And we're constantly updating this list to make sure that it can't do things like RM.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want it to delete your database or delete your code. That would be bad. But I should say best practice, I'm in WSL, but you really should be in a dev container at all times if you're going to do this, to just protect your machine, because you don't actually know what the agent is going to do. And you shouldn't trust us to anticipate every single possible command, because we just can't. We give you really good protection, but you should be in a dev container. Okay, shall we run it and see?
Lately, somebody was vibe coding and they said it deleted my database. And then like,
yes,
I was in the chat with Scott Hanselman. He's like, if you can delete your production database from a command line, you got bigger problems, right? Like you should still have that same level of safety stuff.
So let's see what we've got here. So it looks like the command is still the same. Let's see. All right, interactive. So this is quite different. This looks a lot better. Let's try this again. What should we ask it? It's giving us a tip. Ask a math question. I don't know.
I'm thinking about pancakes.
What is
ask a word problem about pancakes.
Okay, 2 pancakes leave a train station traveling 50 miles per hour in opposite directions. What is the capital of North Carolina? Okay, because this is how I felt trying to solve word problems. So now this is my revenge from grade school. But we've got this nice like terminal CLI here. So when they say that the answer is 0, the pancake details are irrelevant. The capital of North Carolina is Raleigh, and the answer is 0. That's actually, come on. Like, what more can you expect from them? Yeah. So when they say like it's good at design and it has like a really good grasp of aesthetics, I would say that is absolutely true. You can see it here, even in the terminal. Spacing looks good. Font looks good. Yeah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, Chad.
I've had one question I wanted to ask you, Burke, because I've been using your beast mode for GPT-4 and all the 4s. I still use it with 5 some. Although I don't think so. You wrote beast mode, which is a prompt which basically says keep working until you're done, create a plan. Like it sets some more like context to give agency and accuracy, right?
Right, correct.
Are you still using it with GPT-5 or do you not need to?
No, you don't need to. So you see I'm not doing, so this is beast mode. It's quite long. Beast mode is specifically written for GPT 4.1, which has trouble with agency and accuracy. And it is a very opinionated way of working. In my experience, GPT-5 does not need that, number one. And number two is that our system prompt for 5 is pretty good. We've improved. So we put some of beast mode in for 4.1, but GPT-5 has just it's just got a different way of prompting. It respects XML tags a lot more. It really wants tool preambles. And so in my experience, John, by the time beast mode doesn't have a lot of effect on GPT-5, it will just ignore most of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. So we'll keep moving through. I think now we can go on to Pamela, and then we'll kind of go on and take questions at the end from everybody. I love all the chat going on. This is amazing. All right. What you got, Pamela?
All right. So I'm going to show Python. Our Python basic code looks very similar to the JavaScript, where we do have these new parameters. Well, reasoning effort is one we had before with the reasoning models. The difference is now we have minimal. The other options are low, medium, and high. So let me just run this. And here's the interesting thing about minimal is that I have never gotten it to use more than 0 tokens. Every single time I use it, it uses 0 tokens. I've tried, this question is actually quite basic. I've put in puzzles and all sorts of logic issues, and it always uses 0 tokens. So here I've also shown the token usage, right? So you can see the answer, and then we can see here that it used 0 reasoning tokens. So in my experience, if you do minimal, it will pretty much always do 0 tokens. Now, if we change this to, and it'll still give good answers. I'm using minimal for everything because as far as I can tell, I don't really need the reasoning token. But we can use if we change it to low, it will actually use some small amount of tokens, usually like around 100 or so. And so, 4 different use cases you could try out and see, like in this case, it used actually 576 tokens. So that's the thing, you really want to check if you need to use reasoning tokens. In my experience, I'm getting really similar results for my use cases, which is RAG and agents, when I use minimal. So I don't feel the need to go up to low, medium, or high. But you should evaluate that, right? Like we were talking about evaluations earlier. I'm always evaluating. So, you should know about your options, know that minimal seems to basically always be 0 tokens, which is good. It's fast. So if that works for you, then, use minimal. So we've got reasoning effort minimal. So that's our new option. And then we have verbosity. That's a new one they added. And this is an interesting one because the idea is the ability to just tell the model okay, I generally want you to be, a certain amount of verbose. Low, let's see, verbosity is going to be also low, medium, high. It defaults to medium. Now, the interesting thing about verbosity, I haven't seen it have a big effect. Once again, I do need to run bulk evaluations on this to really see. But I haven't seen a noticeable difference between doing low, medium, high. It certainly wouldn't have a difference for this one, but I've been trying it out for other scenarios, like with question answering, and there, the answers haven't really varied that much in length. So I'll run some evaluations, but I have not personally seen a big change from this. Other things you should know is that with reasoning models, you cannot use temperature. So if I try this, I will get an API error. So with reasoning models, you don't have that temperature control. It's just not an option for reasoning models, I think, just because of how it's implemented behind the scenes. Maybe there's different steps and maybe they decide the temperature, but you will get an error. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, there are multiple models. So here I'm using GPT-5. If I change to GPT-5, mini or nano, the same code will run. But if I change to GPT-5 chat, that's actually a very different kind of model. Actually, we'll probably get an error if I run it now, because the chat model is not a reasoning model. It is a chat tuned model. So you can't, there we go. Yeah. Unsupported value, right? So it doesn't support verbosity or reasoning effort. So that's interesting. So this chat model could be the right model to use if you want a powerful model, but you are definitely using it in a, question answering conversational situation. But your code's going to be different.
That's something that now that you mentioned, there is a lot of people complaining about that because the name is misleading. You think about chat and you think, okay, I need some reasoning somewhere in my chat, but yes, it's not for that. So if you're going to go for chat, avoid the reasoning option because yes, we've seen that.
Yeah, I mean,
a couple of readmes.
Like, do you even need reasoning? I have compared chat with full and mini, and I generally prefer full and mini. Chat is like really tuned for chat in that it wants to ask follow-up questions. I think they kind of trained it to ask follow-up questions. So I when I enable GPT-5 chat, like it ends like every single answer with like, oh, are you also interested in this? Are you also interested in that? And so I just kept going with, like, yes, right? So it can like chat, like wants to keep the conversation going, right? So it's definitely chat tuned. It wants to keep a conversation going. But I think generally the accuracy is higher for GPT-5 full and GPT-5 mini. So that would be my preference. But yeah, definitely try out the different models. They are different. Okay, so that's our basic usage, right? Now it's saying we do have the nice structured outputs that that we've had in previous models. So this is what basically what Burke was showing was structured outputs with the JavaScript SDK. When we're doing Python, it's a lot nicer. In Python, we can use Pydantic base model, or we can use data class. Most people, I think, are using the Pydantic base model, right? So we use the base model to define, the types, the output typing, and that gets turned into a JSON schema behind the scenes, right? So this is basically a way of putting a JSON schema, but it's really nice, and it comes back as like, nice Python objects, right? So I'll just run this one, right? So, we're telling it to extract some information and it needs to do it in this form. And, and we need to go back to not using this silly chat model. So actually that means the chat model also does not support structured outputs. Definitely a different model.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we just got an error with it.
Yeah.
So here you can see it comes back as a nice Python object here. So that's like basic usage, right? So let's move on to another demo showing off the multimodal aspect. So what's nice about these GPT-5 models is that they do combine a lot of functionality that before we had to pick and choose, right? So now we can do reasoning, we can do structured outputs, we can do multimodal, we can do streaming, we can do all of that in the same model. So that's what's really nice about it, is that
to define terms in case folks don't know, multimodal means like text or image or like audio.
Yeah, when we say multimodal in this case, we really just mean text and image. That's all we mean. We don't actually mean audio in this case. That's a good point. That's the one thing it doesn't have, is that if you want the real-time audio ability, like the ability to talk with your model back and forth over WebSockets, that is still in the old GPT-4 real-time preview models. So we do not have that ability in these GPT-5 models. It would be nice if we did, because I have some scenarios where I would like the higher accuracy, but also with the real-time voice. But they didn't add it to this model. I think that's like harder to do. I'm not a model trainer myself, but okay. So here, so here's an example where I'm doing the multimodal stuff, right? So what I've got here is a PDF. Let me show you the PDF. This is a PDF from my local plant nursery, right? So I just printed it out and got it off their website, right? So you can see lovely formatting, our favorite font, Papyrus. And it's quite a few pages. What is it? 15 pages. Okay. All right. So I take this PDF that's got a lot of information on it. And then I open it up and I actually convert each page to a PNG. And then then what I do is I take each PNG and I send each of them to the model as a base 64 encoded image string. Basically, if you send images to a multimodal model, it needs to either be an absolute URL. So that's only going to work if it's a publicly available image, and don't just make things publicly available to send it to a model, right? For security reasons. So most of the times when I'm sending images, it is a base 64 encoded string, right? So here I'm sending off all like 15 images at the same time to the model. So I'm sending it a lot of information, like 15 pings, right? And then I said like, okay, which plants are listed on the pages? And this is a GPT-5, and it actually gave me back an alphabetized list. I was like, okay,
wow,
you're kind of sucking up here. You're going a little above and beyond here. Yeah, but then I was like, okay, but let's also show off structured outputs, right? So here, now I've got a pedantic model describing what we want. We want the plant inventory, we want to divide it into annuals, bulbs, and grasses. And then I sent it the same 15 PNGs and told it to do structured output. So now this time we're getting it back as structured output, and it did a really good job. I've done this same test with past models, and it basically, by the time it gets to the final pages, it is just hallucinating like mad, right? Like it just starts saying like the same plant name over and over. It's like, Cianethus. It's like, okay, all right, I get it. This is too much. So I like doing this test to see, what is the limits of it. Now, saying all that, I actually don't recommend using large language models if your whole goal is to read documents. We have something dedicated for that called Azure Document Intelligence, or you can even use PyMu PDF for LLM for a free option locally. Which will use more of an extractive approach. Because the issue with using LLMs is that LLMs are generative, and generative models can make stuff up. That's their whole thing, is that they make stuff up, right? And if you're really trying to get a faithful extraction of a document, then it's better to use an OCR model, an extractive model, versus generative model. That being said, GPT-5 is doing pretty well at this task. So maybe for like a single page or something like that. Like, I think I'm really pushing it with the 15 pages, and you'd really want to run some tight evaluations. But it's an interesting test to see like how it does with accuracy, right? Because the past models have hallucinated so hard on this one.
Wow. I'm thinking of a lot of things as you're showing this. One is like, that's great that you talk about like document intelligence, and like there's opportunities, like even if you had a more complex thing, you could maybe use like an agent or tool calling thing where you're like handling main things, but like if you want to actually extract information from binary, then you would like call off to a service or something there, right? To do that.
Yeah, I mean, generally as developers, we should use the right tools for the right job. And so it's good to know about all the options. One concern I have lately is maybe we talk so much about LLMs, like it was that we forget about the other tools we have available, right? So if you are doing document extraction, there are dedicated tools for that to use. But there might be situations where, an LLM could be a fit, right? And the important thing then is to evaluate it.
Another thing I love that you showed off here is the structured input and output. And that's something that like I've come around to, and I've noticed as I'm looking at code, is so often everything is chat in and out and then parsing. And it's like parsing and validating. It's like you can get away from all of that if you're doing structured input and output, right? Because it's handling that at its level.
That's right. Yeah. If you do want an output from the LLM that isn't just like a conversational answer, then you want to either use tool calling or structured outputs, right? So you definitely don't want to be no more regex and that sort of thing, right? So I really like to use structured outputs. Structured outputs is one of the things I use the most often with LLMs.
Cool.
Okay, so that was that. Now I want to talk about RAG, because RAG is actually where my heart is. It's where I spend most of my time. So I have, this is our open source RAG solution, and I've integrated GPT-5 support into this. So this is doing RAG on a bunch of documents. So RAG means being able to ask questions about your own data. So it stands for retrieval augmented generation. The idea is that you get the user question, use that user question to search some data store, you pass this results to the LLM, and then the LLM answers based off the context. So I really like using LLMs for this use case because we're actually creating answers that are grounded in real information, right? So we're using the language synthesis abilities of the LLMs, but we're giving it context to ground itself in. So we're getting the accuracy from the context. So I'm very impressed by the GPT-5 models for RAG. This is, these are going to be my go-to now. So here we have like a question, we get an answer, we get citations, we can like click the citations and see the full response. Here I can click on the thought process and show you how I use GPT-5. So this is actually a multi-step RAG flow. The first thing we do is that we use the model in order to turn the user's question into a good search query. And so here you can see I'm using reasoning effort minimal. And this user question gets turned into this search query. And immediately I saw a difference in this query writing stage. GPT-5 is like being a lot more verbose actually in the search queries it's coming up with, even when I changed verbosity to low, which is probably fine. Like I haven't evaluated just this step on its own, but it's definitely different from the previous models in terms of this query writing. Then we use that query in order to search as your AI search, and we get back a bunch of document chunks. And then finally, we send the user question and the chunks to the model. Once again, reasoning effort minimal, which meant we used 0 reasoning tokens and got back the response. So that's really cool. Now, what really impressed me is this other question. So let me do this question. It's because this question, what does a product manager do, sounds like an easy question. It's like, oh, we know what a product manager does. But here's the reality is that in this data set, there's actually no description of a product manager role for this company. So the right answer to this is, sorry, I can't answer that, right? And all of the previous models got tricked by this question. And in fact, we didn't realize for the last few years that this was not like that. This sample question that we had was actually one that couldn't be answered. And I didn't realize it until like getting to GPT-5, and they're like, oh, there's not enough information in the sources, right? It says, oh, I have this information, but no product manager. So GPT-5 was the only model that caught the fact that this question could not be answered. And that is why I'm so excited about GPT-5 for RAG, because that is what I want, is a model that's like, oh, wait, actually, I can't answer this question, right? That's just so exciting to me.
Pamela, do you think, is that like the same thing when I asked it about pancakes and then based on that, what is the cat, like a nonsense question? Is it the same thing that we're seeing there?
Okay, so here's the thing is that I have in the prompt, it's also that it's better at instruction following, right? So I have in the prompt, if there isn't enough information below, say there is not information in the source and explain if there's related source material. So you do have to still tell it what to do in that situation, right? Like it's still trained to be helpful. So if, like in your case, like it still gave you a pancake recipe, right? But if you put in your prompt, only answer math questions, if it's not a math question, then refuse. I would say GPT-5 is going to be better at refusing than previous models.
So if you don't include this, will it just hallucinate the product manager role?
Yes.
Even though they say it hallucinates less, it will still do it.
Probably. So I will say GPT-5 mini hallucinates it half the time. So GPT-5 full catches this every time. GPT-5 mini hallucinates it half the time.
Huh.
Yeah. So there is a difference there. So, with RAG, like I'm always going to go with the one that, hallucinates it less.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of those things that's like why I was really excited to see when they mentioned that they'd reduced hallucinations. I was like, okay, let's see if this is true. And like, I ran this also against my own. I also have a data set based off my own personal blog, because then I can really evaluate if it's making stuff up. And I could not catch it on any hallucinations with GPT-5. So very impressed. Wow. And I did actually make a blog post where I shared my evaluations, because I did bulk evaluations with all the models. So you can see how they did with groundedness and relevance and answer length. And then I also just broke down, what the differences were, right? So this is the big one I talked about here. Like it can quicker to say, I don't know. this was with the chat model was request for clarification, right? So I saw it so much with the chat model that it'll request clarification, and some of the other models too, which I think is good. Oh my gosh, they love lists. Like what was it? 72% of the answers from GPT-5 used a top level list as the answer. So I feel like that must have been part of the training there, because that's like, I was shocked when I looked at it. The answer length generally on the long side, except for GPT-5 chat, which is actually on the shorter side, interestingly. And then here's the thing that drives me insane, which is the one like bug with this model. And you might seem minor, but you have no idea how many issues this has caused in the last few weeks. So it uses smart quotes instead of ASCII quotes. Okay. So these are, so they're like quotes that are like the curly quotes, or whatever you want to call them. And I only noticed it because I was trying to find every time it said, I don't know, and it wasn't finding it at all. But then I realized, because I was searching with an ASCII quote and everything was with a curly quote. So like GPT-5, it loves smart quotes. We've seen this with GitHub Copilot, because it actually sometimes, like if you're using it to write documentation, now your documentation has smart quotes everywhere. It's also messed up a little bit with some of the agentic tool calling when it's passed in smart quotes when it should do, just ASCII quotes. I found this last night and discovered like kind of a bug with my code where I wasn't handling non-ASCII characters correctly because of the smart quote. So this difference drives me crazy. And I wish they would, I want them to release a new version of the GPT-5 model that does not have this tendency to do smart quotes, because I consider this to be a bug in their model. I feel like it was part of their like post-training stage that they had synthetic data with smart quotes, because that's the only explanation I can come up with.
Do you find that it uses M dashes a lot? Because that's another thing that makes it
exactly what I was going to ask. Yeah, that's how you get outed by AI, is the M dash.
I don't. I mean, so I can like check to see, in the evals. I don't personally really care about M dashes. They don't really offend me either way.
It does make it obvious, though. Like when I see an M dash, I'm like, this is GPT.
Yes. That's the dead giveaway that you did not write this. We're trying to hide.
I can look in. Okay, let's see. How do I don't even know how to like search for an M dash. Okay, I'm just gonna Google for M dash.
Yeah.
M dash, and then M dash.
This is what I do, by the way, as well.
Okay. There is one M dash in the whole thing, so that's
okay. That's not bad.
It's not a lot. And there's a lot of N dashes, but where you'd expect them.
For other languages, Spanish mostly, in French, I realized that these things is happening. And my guess, and what I've been reading about, is that they use a lot of synthetic data to do this. And the synthetic data is always the same. So if they use a synthetic data using A instead of B, it's going to work always with A. And I know this, I feel this, because there are a couple of letters in Spanish that literally are using the French version of the letter, which is not the right one. And it's been solved in the last 2 weeks. Someone raised the hand, so I think it's something happening there. But yes, I'm guessing that this all probably came from a huge synthetic data set that was used for the training.
Yeah. So that's the risk of synthetic data. You really got to get that synthetic data right. Scott asked, can you prompt it not to use smart quotes? Yes, you can. I don't want to have to write that in all my prompts, but I know like for in our GitHub Copilot chat with our colleagues, people have been sharing all their various prompts to tell it to use plain quotes and to avoid specific Unicode characters and whatnot. So you can certainly prompt it, but I if I was Sam, I would release a new version of the model that fixed that. So those are the evaluations for RAG. Okay, and the final thing I was going to show was an agent. We're kind of close to time. I don't know if we're allowed to go over or not, because we still need to show Bruno too. But I could show an agent if we want to see an agent.
I'm fine. Bruno, are you tight on time? You're good? Okay. Let's see the agent.
So we did talk about GPT-5. It was also trained to be better at tool calling, which is good because we're seeing lots of people building agents that are using tool calling. So I've been building this tool the last few days to go through the issues in our RAG repo, because there's quite a few of them and a lot of them are stale, and I should really close them. So I have this tool that looks for issues and then researches each issue and then proposes whether they can be closed or not. So this is all built with lane graph. You can see the graph here. Right now, looks like a fairly linear graph, but the thing that's fun is that I have human in the loop. So at the point where it proposes what to do, it actually sends that to an inbox. This is called the agent inbox. This is from lane graph. And here I can review all of the potential issue closers, right? So here I can look at this one and be like, okay, all right, this is I was testing this with my colleague last night who could speak some Japanese, and we were testing because we were like, as I discovered issues with Unicode thanks to the smart quotes, he's like, well, what happens if I send a Japanese issue? And so then I fixed it, and now so anyway, here's the English summary, right? So I can edit the comment here. I can tell it whether it can close it, right? And then I can accept, and then that'll actually post the comment and close the issue on the issue tracker. So I think this whole human in the loop thing is very powerful, given that we know that LLMs are we can't have 100% confidence in LLMs. So that's why I like to use LLMs for RAG, because we can, look at the citations. And that's kind of how we have the human in the loop here, is with the ability to dive into the citations. And then when we're building the agents, having the ability to interrupt the graph. So, this is the point where it gets interrupted, and send the current state to a human to say, hey, this is what the agent wants to do. Do you think it should do it? Right. So really excited about that. Now, what's cool about here, this is with Langsmith. So I've got the traces from here, so we can see where it calls a model. So here I'm actually using GPT-5 Mini, because when I was building this, I was waiting for my GPT-5 access. But GPT-5 Mini was doing quite well. I actually don't think I need to switch to GPT-5 for this one, but I can do some tests. But you can see like where, we send a prompt there and say, this is your goal. These are the tools you have available. Here's the information about the issue. Here's all the comments, right? And these are the tools it has available. It can search issues, search code, fetch a file, and then propose the final stage. So this is using a React agent, which is an agent that can iteratively call tools until it thinks it's ready to come up with a response. So we can see it searched the code, searching for some query. It fetched a file because it thought that file had some information. It searched issues. It fetched another file, it searched the code again, and then finally it came up with its response to say, okay, don't close this one. There's some recent activity, and that'll get sent to my agent inbox. So what I'm seeing is that the GPT-5 models are, working well for agentic flows as promised, and I'm excited to find ways to build agents to automate some of the many tasks I have that take a long time, and that it can do better than me.
So one question before we kick over to Bruno. Did you cover, I might have missed, what are you using for the orchestration of this, like the workflow stuff, to make sure that when you answer a thing, then something else happens?
Yeah, so this is all with LangGraph. I'll share the code. It is in active development. I was originally using LangGraph with the MCP server, but I just moved away from the MCP server. I think MCP servers are great for prototyping, but you really need to be careful when using them, because they expose so many tools, and some of those tools are destructive or write operations, right? So when I was testing it originally with MCP server, it closed the issue without sending it to the inbox, because I gave it access to all the MCP server tools and I didn't have it coded properly, right? So then I added some code to filter and say, okay, you can only use these tools from the MCP server. And then finally I was like, screw it, I'm just going to write my own custom tools, right? So I think MCP servers can be fun to start off with for prototyping, and I've got some minimal examples of LangGraph plus MCP that I can share. But ultimately, I would recommend building your own, your own custom tool. So here, this is LangGraph is you make a graph, and some of the nodes are using agents, and you decide conditionally how you go from one node to the next.
Cool. Wow, everybody's loving your examples. These are amazing. Okay, we need to give some time for Bruno, so let's kick over to Bruno.
John, before we jump to Bruno, I have to drop here. I do have a hard stop at the top of the hour. I apologize, Bruno. I apologize.
Thanks so much.
Good to see you, Chad. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Burke.
All right, Bruno.
And hey, because we have a very short time here, let me show you what I wanted to do. Because I mean, in .NET, we have GPT-5 here of course in code. We also have GPT-5 here in Visual Studio. I switch as a .NET developer between the both of them all the time. And when I was thinking about this, we have a lot of enterprise solutions and more. But what I wanted to show is basically this. A couple of days ago, we ran an online session with a colleague, and he brings this super nice console GPU viewer tool in C#, and I like it. And it's open source. The links are somewhere there. And I said, hey, this is cool. This is nice. And I tried to build this literally using C#. And as you see here, this is my GPU in the back. I have a couple of local models. If I trigger here a question with the local models, I think I am using Olama with GPT OSS. We are going to see that the assistant is warming up the model, but we are going to see that the GPU is starting to work. So, hey, this is going to take some time. Let's give it more time. And there it is. We're going to start to get the GPU working. This is kind of nice. So I came here, and the way that I usually do this in .NET, I have my first step that I ask a model to do a plan, to create a PRD. I literally have a PRD to build this. The console GPU viewer, where the purpose, the goal. So I create this, and then I write the code, and I start to iterate in the code. And what I like about this is that I used to, my combo a couple of months ago was Cloud for doing the reasoning, and then GPT-4 for the coding part. Right now is GPT-5 for the reasoning part, and Mini for the implementation. And it kind of works. I mean, this is the output that I created in a couple of hours this morning. This is the new version. By the way, when Burke creates his start screen, it seems that all of the start screen in console mode are similar. This is the one that was created for me. But hey, I can start right now my monitoring process, and you see there, I went for a different style. You can take a look. If I trigger again my GPU, let's ask the question. We are going to see that starting to use the GPU right now. I know it's ugly as hell. I am the worst with colors. I don't know. I only know
your computers. I'm impressed your computer's keeping up with streaming and doing this.
The GPT and the GPUs are powerful, and the NVIDIAs are good. And by the way, for Mac users, because I know that you have Mac users here, don't be afraid. GPU is what the rest of the world have to perform this crazy stuff. So when you heard about CUDA and these kind of things, you have, I don't know, Pamela, it's M1, they have M1, M2. I can't remember the last version that you have that puts it all together. But hey, I was talking with Copilot here, and I say, hey, I like this view. By the way, I need to fix the flickering, because we also have this vertical view. And what I like about this is that it's super, super easy. Right now, let me stop this. I went to Copilot and I say, hey, Copilot, what else can I do here? What are a couple of other ideas that we can implement using this approach? And it came with a couple of good ideas. So you know what? You can do a single line with spark lines. Okay, I like it. You can do another one, which is going to use brush, whatever. I can't remember the names or more. So I went the heat map and more. So I went and say, hey, create this also. And again, it's a long conversation. And I'm not going to show everything, but I have here right now the spark lines. You can see the spark line here, very, very smooth there. And if I trigger my GPU again with the question, we are going to see how the GPU is there and the Spark is there, is working. If I go to the vertical view, I also have the Spark on top. This is all created, literally talking there. My main, not concern, but my main focus right now, let me stop this because the flickering is ugly, is that all of this is a single file. It's a single program file. If you know any language, this is probably how big it is. 700 lines of code. Of course, this is the step that you start to refactor. I mean, I was happy when I see Burke's idea more, because I was thinking, hey, GPT is working in Copilot, working great for any scenarios, and we are all the same. I need to go here and start to say, hey, refactor this device history to another class and more, but it works really, really great. Even in other, let me switch here. Even in other scenarios, let me see, which is my hierarchy. I have a huge, we have a huge Aspire solution where we have a front end, a couple of services, a couple of promoting support services, have tests, support classes, and more. This is a huge project. And hey, Copilot was smart enough to understand and start to say, hey, you know what? I have these controllers. What are the options? And the controller are going to go here and there, and start to generate code and start to generate mail diagrams to help me understand the code and fix some deadlocks that I have there. It's great. And again, my combo today in the option that we have here is coding there and syncing here. That's it. I am not going far away. I used to do Cloud and GPT and 4.1. Now it's literally 5 for syncing and 5 mini for coding, and it works really, really great. And again, this is a crappy console application, but in a standard application, it's work great. And I agree with Pamela mentioned, that's this to close. If you don't give Copilot instructions, it's going to go crazy in C# Word, in example, going with best practices and more. So if you create a simple console application, it will create a factory and a repository and interfaces. And sometimes, no, man, I just want to have a crappy console application, and that's it. So if you set up your instructions, it will follow the instruction. And on the other side, if you're working on a big project, a big solution, tons of dependencies and more, the instructions are key there. And we have tons of, in the awesome Copilot, we have tons of samples of instruction for C#. So, hey, this is something that you can do, and I'm super happy. By the way, I was trying to create here, this is just to show you that it's not all perfect here. I was trying to create, let me start here, a Star Wars mode, and this is it. Nothing happened. I don't know. I need to go there to the code to figure out what is thinking about the Star Wars. So we don't have anything here, just empty frames. There are values here because if I enable the, it's not even showing the Spark lines. Oh my God, we have a line. Maybe it shows one line every 2 minutes, or I don't know. You need to review the code. This is the fun part. I will stay with my vertical view, which is kind of nice. Oh, it doesn't even close there, which is kind of nice and works and more. And hey, the code is here in one of the links that we share here. It's already there. And I will also take a look. Someone mentioned that, do we need to read the PRDs and more? Yes, I will say yes, because this is what they're going to use to help you work with your code. So it is kind of nice. And I didn't make any crazy assumption here, just showing a crappy console application based on what my friend Tal showed, I think it was last week or more. And there it is. And I don't know about colors, by the way. If someone has a suggestion, let me know. I just realized that this is ugly.
Wow.
Hey, giving you back time for everyone.
Okay. Well, this is amazing. I want to be respectful of people's time. I'll just very quickly bring up, you mentioned this before, Bruno, like this is great for being able to compare. So like I can go in, I can say, ask a question, I can side-by-side compare. So that's really nice to be able to do that kind of, and I'm seeing here, like as an example, it's responding faster with GPT-4.1 and then, slower on the GPT-5, but it's going to give kind of a more advanced answer, I'm assuming. Probably with more bullet points and more smart quotes and stuff. But so this is a great kind of example of kind of, I'll give it a second, I guess there. Also, we've got this blog post. We shared the links on this. This is kind of the main roll up where we talk through how to get started. I don't know if any kind of hints or anything. We tried to include like, these are the regions where it's available. You do need to fill out a thing to apply for it. Everybody has access to Mini, Nano, and Chat. So those are kind of some of the places, and this is kind of a roll up of some of the code. So this is kind of our, after watching this stream, the link for this is down at the bottom. It's in the description, and this is kind of the main. We'll make sure we review and get any links that we included in the stream added to this this blog post too. So, anything else in closing, folks?
Are we gonna take any more questions?
Sure. Yeah. One that came up here. Well,
there was an interesting one, probably more for Burke, but he already left. When you were showing the notebook, Pamela, someone said that, do we have notebook for JavaScript? I know in .NET we have polyglot notebooks that we can run .NET code with cells and more, but I don't know for GS if they have notebooks. There should be something, I'm guessing. They have everything. I don't know if you know or someone knows.
I think Polyglot Notebooks includes JavaScript, but
maybe Polyglot's already. Hey, maybe yes. That's. Yeah. I know they do .NET and Python. Maybe they also do that. But hey.
Another question that came up was just about like general pricing stuff, information on pricing. Either of you want to jump in on that?
Let's find the link for it. I don't memorize the pricing.
Yeah.
And of course at Azure, like, we've got different kinds of pricing. I'm always using the global standard pay as you go, which, as the pricing for that is generally the same as the OpenAI pricing here. I just found the link for it. At Azure, if you're going to use like a huge amount of it, there's something called provision throughput. That's like if you're going to use like at least like $12,000 a month or something, right? I've never personally gotten to that level, but I know some of the customers do, and that's why we have it. Because then you get dedicated capacity as well, right? Because when you're using the global standard, it's a shared GPU. Yeah, I mean, check out the pricing there. Simon Willison, he had a good pricing comparison, basically saying that it's very competitively priced based on like compared to competitors. So there's I'm sharing Simon's post there, right? Like Ford's quality, it's got really comparable or even better pricing than the similar models from other options. So I think that's another reason why the GPT models are exciting, because some of the previous models are like, okay, yeah, maybe it's like we're getting better output, but like, is it worth the extra latency, and is it worth the extra cost, right? But here we've got pretty good latency, still a bit slower than some of the other models, but like really competitive pricing. I was going to share performance. So my colleague Anthony is making a utility to benchmark the performance of different models. So if you are interested in that, let me also link to his utility. Basically you can, set up a bunch of models on different hosts, or, like all the GPU models on Azure, and then just run the same prompt, like 20 times, and it'll measure the average time to first chunk and the chunks per second, which are the big metrics that I care about. Is that time to first chunk? That's the most important one for me. And yeah, so you can take a look and see, whether it's reasonable. And generally, like, I think these metrics should get better. Like right now we do have capacity issues, like especially when GPT-5 full first came out, I could not use it for the first 4 days. And I was so sad because I really wanted to run those evaluations and see, but I couldn't get through 50 questions without running into a timeout error with the Azure OpenAI. But that went away after 4 days, and now it's been a lot better. And I think generally as time goes on, like, and we get more capacity, you should expect to see better performance.
One other thing I'll just mention, when going back to the Azure costs, is it's good to set a cost limit. This is something that I've done just recently. Like I was teaching workshops and like doing things where it was like evaluating, and it would actually, I created a system prompt that would run the workshop, and it went through and did all the steps and ran all the things. And then I start getting cost alerts. I'm like, oops, So it's good also to kind of set those up to keep an eye and monitor. Cool. I don't know.
So Kevin's asking, is there a benchmark for real world data. I mean, you can check the system card for all the different things they measured there, because they included both like standard benchmarks, but a lot of times they did some benchmarks against their own like ChatGPT data, which is kind of real world data. But it depends what you mean by real world. So I mean, I think the best thing is to ideally run it for your own domain, because for every for every domain and use case and scenario, you're gonna see different results. So it's always best to evaluate on your specific use case, and to have someone with domain expertise who can say whether it's correct or not. Because remember that LLMs are deceptively correct. So you actually need someone with domain expertise. That's why when I do evaluations, I always run them on my own blog as well, because then I can reason about whether it's correctly answered if I have, children, right? And I'm like, you kind of got it, right? Like,
yes, and on top of that, as Jon mentioned before, there are evals library, depending if you are in Python, .NET, JavaScript. I think top major languages have eval libraries, so don't be afraid to write. I would say don't be afraid. Please write some evals on your data, on your knowledge, because it's going to be great for you to test GPT-5, GPT-6, GPT-25. Well, I don't know what we are going to see next year, but you already have the test there, and you can run these benchmarks.
Yeah, there was a question on Azure AI Foundry. So there's a blog post I linked to, and then Pamela linked also to the docs on how to evaluate. So.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Azure AI Foundry, there's a lot of docs, because it depends what you're doing with Azure AI Foundry, right? So if you're just trying to deploy the models, I'll put that link again in the chat, and that's pretty straightforward. But if you're trying to do other things, then you just go to the docs for whatever you're trying to do. Because within the Azure AI Foundry, we've got models, we've got fine tuning, we've got evaluations, we've got red teaming. Like, we've got a lot of different functionality. So depending on what you're trying to do, you'll find different docs.
Awesome. One other, just going back to performance and cost also, caching. Caching's great to remember here. You'll get a lot of common questions and stuff, and like just using caching in an application. And the cheapest thing you can always do is not run the same operation more than once. So that's good stuff. Okay. Well, this is great. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thanks so much for all the amazing demos, all the great stuff. We've got all the links and all the information here. Thanks, Pamela and Bruno, and also thanks to Burke. I think we're not going to have music at the end, so I'm getting ready with some music. I think we're going to go with dance pop here. So,
okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit end stream, and thanks, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.